we start the webcast now. Members welcome. It's 7 o'clock. The webcasting introduction. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or another use by such third parties. Please also be aware if there are technical difficulties interrupting the meeting that cannot be overcome, I may need to adjourn the meeting. Apologies for absence.
None received, Chairman.
Thank you. I have apologies for possible lateness by Councillor Aniket Patel.
He's here. I think I've seen him.
Someone switched his computer on for him. That's good. Okay, minutes of the last meeting. Can I take those as agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay.
Chairman, we missed out declarations of interest.
Oh, my apologies. Any declarations of interest? No?
Not that I can see, no.
Okay, fine. Minutes of the last meeting. Can I take those as being agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Reports of portfolio holders. Any portfolio holders wish to make a report?
Councillor Whitbread, would you like me to do that response now? Because I can't have both agenda open and the response.
No, if we could just wait, that's the next thing coming up, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Public questions and request to address the council.
Okay. Leader, I've got a question and a response here. I believe this was done earlier on in the year, back in December. So I'll start from the top. The first question, this comes from a Mr. R. Morell, Nursery, Old House Lane, Roydon, CM19 5DN. In December, I asked a question about Epping Forest District Council's local plan. I was sorry to know that the response only partially answered my question. So I'd like to ask, the new planning application not accounted for in Harlow Council's local plan will see over 3,000 more homes built in Harlow over and above the number required of Harlow Council. In addition to the 1,600 14% uplift already accounted for, why does this council still wish to see thousands of homes built on Greenbelt land on Harlow's southern and western borders? Is EFDC local plan really all about obtaining new homes bonus to shore up the council's financial position rather than the housing need? If you give me a second, I will go to a response. So I think you had that one. As members will be aware, the Planning Inspector wrote to the Council following the publication of the Office of National Statistics Household Projections 2018 on the 16th of July 2020, seeking clarification as to whether the plan's housing requirement remains sound and whether a meaningful change in the housing situation had occurred. In order to respond to this, the Council, together with the Strategic Housing Market Area partners, Harlow, East Herts and Usford District Council, commissioned ORS to prepare some additional evidence. On the 4th of September 2020, Council wrote back to the Inspector to advise that whilst the 2018 base projections demonstrate some variation from the 2014 base population projections, it does not represent meaningful change in the housing situation from one which informed the emerging local plan. The Inspector has now consulted on this matter and the responses are available on the Council website. She will be considering this information before determining whether or not any modifications to the housing requirements of the plan are required. Once agreed, the Inspector, the main modification to emerging local plan will be subject to 6-week statutory consultation. While by way of background, the Inspector considered the appropriateness of the housing numbers through the examination hearing. The plan was examined under the 2012 National Planning Policy Framework and used 2014 base projections in a revised note of the 2nd of August 2019, which is EB98. The Inspector agreed that the requirement of the district should be set out in the local plan submitted version 2017. There is another small part at the top. I think that answered the original question. If not, I'll get the officers to provide the full response, a written response back to the to Mr. Morell.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bedford. Are there any other requests to address the Cabinet?
Chairman, none other.
Thank you.
Chairman, can I apologise for lateness? I've just been in an Epping Town Council meeting and I have no declarations of interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Avey. Okay, so moving forward, item 7, overview and scrutiny. Councillor Sartin.
Thank you, Chairman. The last meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee was on the 2nd of February, and we had Mr. Walker from the North East Parking Partnership who came and gave us an overview of the operations as they currently stand, and also answered quite a range of questions from members. One particular was around the red routes that were set up in the forest, but there were also others around speeding vehicles, footway parking, and also question raised about the installation of electric vehicle charging points. We had a further update on the people strategy. This would normally go to Stronger Council Select Committee, and future updates will go to that Select Committee. The election planning progress report gave us an outline of the work that is going forward with the view of elections taking place on the 6th of May, which of course is becoming more and more likely, the messages that are coming out of government. We looked at the new policy on the disposal of small landfill sites and individual properties, which any receipts will be coming in from that will be ring-fenced for the HRA functions, and we questioned some of the items within the policy. The other items that came up on that evening were the possible reconvening of the local High Streets Task and Finish panel, but in view of the current situation around the pandemic, it was agreed that this should be delayed until the end of the current lockdown. We also had a summary from each of the chairmen of the select committees on their January meetings, covering the items that they had dealt with at those meetings. And finally, if I could just draw everyone's attention to the next meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which will be taking place on the 15th of April. And at that meeting, Epping Forest Youth Council will be coming along to talk to us about the work they've been doing. But also on that evening, we'll be having an item on young people's mental health services, and we felt that these two items fitted very well together because obviously the Youth Council has done some work around mental health in young people within the district. So, as I say, that will be our meeting on the 15th of April. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? No? Okay.
No, Chairman, I've indicated, haven't I? I'm on the screen.
How are you? Oh, sorry, I didn't see your...
That's fine. Only 3 quick comments and then 1 question. Can I thank the chairman again for her excellent chairmanship of that meeting? I thought it was a superb meeting. As regards the NEP presentation, it was really good to have an officer who was very open and very honest about what they could do and what they couldn't do. I'm not saying that we don't normally get that, but we all know that parking enforcement is a difficult topic within our wards. And he was very honest and he was very open. I'm glad that the chairman has referenced the next meeting, because I really do think the scrutiny in a positive way, not a confrontational way, of children's mental health services is very timely. My question is, and I mean maybe for the officers rather than the chairman, do we know whether we've had receipt of any of the replies that NEP quite understandably couldn't give at the meeting? He did undertake, didn't he, to send them back into the council, and I haven't seen those yet. I don't think I particularly had a question that wasn't answered, but I think other members did. Do we know whether we've received those yet? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Sartin?
Like Councillor Murray, I haven't seen any sight of these yet, so I will chase them up with officers unless there is an officer present here this evening who can answer that point.
Okay, any officers able to answer that this evening? Okay, what I suggest is we'll come back with a written response at some point. Okay, right, moving onwards, because we've got a long agenda this evening. We've got the item 11 was the draft budget, but these are out of order slightly. So I know Councillor Philip has asked me to take item 11 first, which is the Q3 budget monitoring report. Councillor Philip.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, and I think it makes sense to take these in the order that we discussed in terms of the budget monitoring, then our proposed fees and charges, then leading into the budget, because it makes more sense that way. We reported back on Q3 outturn to overview and scrutiny. We went directly there because there wasn't an appropriate meeting otherwise. In high-level terms, and I think most people will probably have heard this report already, in high-level terms, at the end of Q3, things were not as bad as we thought they might have been at the end of Q2. We had a significant improvement in our position, but there were still significant pressures on the budget. Probably the top three were the leisure facilities, which should come as no surprise to people, given our leisure centres have been shut. Quality income due to the changes in the ability to build due to the pandemic. And finally, car parking. Anybody who's used one of our car parks in the recent past will know that they're nowhere near as busy as they usually are. And we also have within that our 20 pence charge for the first 2.5 hours. That all contributes significant budget pressure on the council and has pushed things down. Fortunately, we've been able to receive a significant amount of money from the government against some of these losses, nearly 2 million by the end of Q3. In terms of capital spending, we obviously have made expenditure on Qualis investments and also further spending coming on in Q4 on Qualis investments. In terms of the housing revenue account, we have made a significant expenditure on that by the end of Q3. Members, I think the only other thing I want to call out is the correction I made obvious at overview and scrutiny in terms of the development of the council offices themselves. We called out the fact that although the capital programme is showing an overspend at the end of Q3, that is planned and always has been planned to be rectified with a revenue transfer at the end of the financial year, and that should actually result in that programme being slightly under budget. Chairman, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Members of the Cabinet, any questions? No, everyone's very quiet. In that case, I'll go straight to Councillor Heap.
Thank you. I have a few questions and queries, so lick your pencil and get ready. On Appendix A, what will be the total debt for the HRA in 2026? That'll be one of the questions. On Appendix B, the columns on page 5 don't seem to add up correctly. Not sure what's going on there. If you could check those. And in Appendix C, page 4, very nice set of balanced figures there. Very good that you can have £336,406. That's very good. But then when we get to the other expenditures at the back, on pages 9 onwards, there are some odd numbers here. Things that have gone. So there's museum development projects have gone down dramatically.
Councillor Heap.
Yeah.
This is the Q3 monitoring report you're asking questions on.
Is it not Appendix A, B and C that you've sent? It's mentioned there on item 11.
I think you're judging it.
Am I?
Yeah.
The ones we did then.
I think you're referring to one.
You give me a wave when it's the appropriate one.
I will do, Councillor Heap. But I think this the confusion is that item 11 does have appendices A, B, and C. However, they're on pages 69, 70, and 71 of the main agenda.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Therefore, can we accept the Q3 report?
Agree.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay. We'll then move to fees and charges.
Thank you, Chairman. Stop one. Start this one. Can I make it?
We're getting a lot of feedback. Too many people have their microphones on, I think.
Well, that sounds an awful lot better. Yes, as I was saying, there are a couple of errors in this report for which I apologise. On page 44, in terms of the Hackney Carriage private hire, we have discovered that there's a legislative duty of consultation which will prevent us making price rises in 21-22. So what we should see in there are no changes to the fees. The private hire operators, the proposed amounts for 21-22 should say £130, £498 and £66. Fees and charges therefore will be frozen. And thereafter on page 46 for the special waste collection, you'll see them at the bottom, special waste collections over 60 rate. What it should be saying is that 1 to 3 units is £13.80, 4 to 7 is £20.80, 8 to 10 is £27.60, and 11 to 15 is £35. Hopefully, members, that will be an acceptable approach to this, making these corrections this evening. In terms of the report overall, we have the changes to fees and charges here. As you will see, the vast majority of these are either staying exactly the same or have minimal increases. We have two charges, one to look at, which are the general fund charges in Appendix A, car parking charges in Appendix B, and then finally we're looking at a council house rent increase of 1.5% and a 2.5% to the other HRA fees and charges. Jim, I think the detail is fairly self-explanatory. I am, of course, happy to look at any of the ones in particular, but hopefully members will see that in general what we're trying to do is reduce the pressure on our residents in the district by making minimal increases to fees and charges where it's sensible, and for the vast majority keeping them set at the same level as they are this year.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip. Members, any questions? Councillor Bedford.
Thank you. It's just a point of clarification, really. I think it's on page 55, car parking. There seem to be a lot of ticks and small asterisks, but no explanation what they mean. Is it possible we could get some explanation put around those, please, before the document's published?
Councillor Phillip.
Chairman, I'll commit that they will be updated and clearly annotated when I bring it to council at the end of February.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other members of the Cabinet? No. In that case, I'll go straight to Councillor Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm really pleased to hear the correction to the special collections for over 60s, because I was going to raise that. It appeared to be a more than double increase, so that is good. I just wanted to comment on the charges for the museum, the space. And my agenda, it's page 30, but my pages seem to be different to what Councillor Bedford and Philip have mentioned. But it's the charges for the space. I presume the museum wants to encourage community groups to go to the museum and make use of those lovely facilities. So if a community group takes 30 people to the museum for the space, they pay £32 in rent for the room, which I think is very reasonable. But if they want to give their people who are coming a cup of tea and coffee and a biscuit, that's £99, which seems a bit excessive. It's £3.30 per person. Now, obviously, there is a charge for the staff preparation and all that, but I do think the charge for refreshments at the museum could do with a review, because I don't think that £3.30 for a cup of tea and coffee is, when you have a lot of people, it just puts the whole renting of a room with some refreshments, which are nice when you have a meeting, sort of out of bounds really for a lot of community groups. So if that could be looked at some point, perhaps not this year, but in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Whitehouse. Yeah, I will apologise again for our refuse collection charges. There was simply an administration error in compiling those figures, and clearly, as I reviewed the document, it stood out that there was an error there. That's why we fixed those. We will, I'm sure, look at the prices for tea and biscuits at the museum. Unfortunately, of course, at the moment it's caught up in everything else, and we can't have people there, let alone serving tea and biscuits. But I think you would struggle in most places to get tea and biscuits for less than £3.30 a head. And we do have to make sure that we cover the cost sensibly, but that will be looked at.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Mine's merely an administrative point again. I can't be the only member. I know I'm getting a bit old, but I found Appendix A and Appendix B very easy to read and very clear and easy on the eye. I did find the fees and charges as regards housing related services a real struggle to read. It just wasn't set out in the same format, and I can't believe I was the only the member who felt that. So I'm just really saying, if we, if the fees and charges, whoever set that out, could kind of use the kind of format that was used for A and B, it's much easier to follow. I really struggled to read that, I have to be honest.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip.
Chairman, as a fellow spectacle-wearing person, I understand Councillor Murray's challenge with the smaller figures. We'll look at that, whether it's something we can rectify before council, I don't know, but we'll take it on board certainly for next year, that we should try and make things of the similar size to what we've got in Appendix A and B. And I do fully agree that it's far better to be clear and obvious in what we're actually saying than trying to make the print too small. Given that the vast majority of agendas are not printed anyway, we're not even saving on paper.
Okay. I've got no other speakers listed. Councillor Phillip, I think they're a very... Oh, sorry, Councillor Rose Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just got one query. I appreciate that, you've tried very hard to put absolutely no increase on minimal, but this one just seems a little steep for, I know the market for the museum movers. These are mainly people that go for mainly senior citizens, some of whom are on a more limited income. And the charge is going up from £3.50 to £5. And it's been a great success, the museum movers class over there. I know they've had to stop during the pandemic, but an increase of £1.50 just feels a bit steep.
Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Yes, I understand what you're saying. We have looked very carefully at the cost of providing things. I don't expect to change that at this stage, but we may well be able to keep it the same for next year, given that we've put the prices up this year. I don't have to my fingertips how long it is since we put up those fees, but we can certainly have that information by the time we come to council at the end of the month.
Yeah, thank you. So these are the proposed fees and charges for the new budget. Councillor Phillip, I think the increases are reasonable and in perspective to what we're going through out there at the moment, or what our residents are going through at the moment. I think we've done better than most councils, or a lot of councils around Essex, and I know everyone is struggling with fees and charges this year. Members, can I agree those recommendations regards to fees and charges?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Very much. Okay, so do you want to take the draft capital programme next, Councillor Phillip?
No, I think I'll take the draft budget, Chairman. The capital programme is possibly less critical in terms of timing, as it tends to run over a larger amount of money.
Okay, therefore, can we go to what was previously item 8, draft budget 21-22? Councillor Flip.
Thank you, Chairman. And the draft budget for this for Cabinet meeting is now actually, as people will see, on one of the appendices later I issued to the agenda. Can I apologise right up front for having to issue this late, but as has been well flagged through the course of production of the budget, things have been changing all the time due to not just the pandemic, but other factors impacting on us. I would dearly love to be able to publish the budget alongside the rest of the council papers, but unfortunately that wasn't possible. So when we did our medium-term financial plan back in November, we were revealing an underlying budget of 4.1 million in the general fund. That was a huge impact to the budget that we would have to eliminate at the time. We included an assumption in that medium-term plan that we would receive 1 million from the government, and we'd also use 1 million of our contingency reserves to support the budget. And that brought the gap down to 2.1 million. After our November Cabinet meeting, we carried on working on that and produced a balanced position to the Cabinet at the end of December. Those included the assumption that support from the government of 1.2 million would be received based on the context of spending review, and we would assume that we'd support from our reserves virtually unchanged, just under £1 million. However, after that Cabinet report was produced, but before the meeting was held, the local government finance settlement was published. That created a further deficit on our general fund due to significantly lower than we anticipated new homes bonus allocation. The HRA presented to Cabinet in December showed a small surplus, which would maintain a balance of 2 million in our general reserve. We took both the general fund and the HRA budgets to the Stronger Select Committee on the 19th of January, and we updated the committee on the outcome of the provisional local government finance settlement and outlined the further budget pressure that it created. We've now completed further detailed work on those budgets, rebalancing the general fund and being able to remove the proposed council tax increase. Essentially what we're doing here is bringing forward a council tax freeze for 21-22. This has been brought forward for a number of reasons, primarily to reduce the pressure on our residents who are suffering as a result of COVID. This has been something that's been flagged up on a number of occasions to me by my Cabinet colleagues and was also flagged up by the Select Committee. It is worth pointing out that when you look at last year and this year comparative figures, because of the realignment of services, there are still refinements to make to those balances. Our general budget, therefore, for 21-22 has a net expenditure of 16.690 million. And the detail of that is called out in the table in the appendix on page 4. It shows also where the funding for that comes from, including a 1.35 million contribution from reserves. Just calling out the things that changed significantly in our net expenditure. Our employee costs showed a significant increase in December, but we've reduced that to a 1.5p award, and that has reduced the budget demand by over 300,000. We've also been able to reduce the costs on premises and transport because of the changes in working arrangements by the pandemic and the reopening of the refurbished civic offices. So again, a significant saving there. We did point out in December a significant cost pressure on our insurance, which had been addressed following the adoption of the MTPF in November. We have put in further cost growth as we move our IT services off-premise and into the cloud. I won't say any more significant about the fees and charges, as we have already gone through that on the agenda. But we are still hoping to get £500,000 in 21-22 from our leisure management fee. That is about a third of the overall amount that we would normally expect. We're also expecting significantly less impact on the income from our planning fees, as we're seeing them recover already. A quick word about Qualis. Looking at this at a high level, there is a loss, a lower income due to Qualis as a result of the pandemic, but there's also a matching lower cost due to the fact that the loans haven't been called out in the same way. Moving briefly to the funding highlights, we are, as I said already, going for a 0% rise on the council tax. That's reducing our take by over £270,000. However, we aren't funding that entirely from the additional money from the reserves. We've added an extra 150,000 coming out of the reserves to fund that, but the remaining 120,000 has been absorbed within our original allocation from the reserves. We did have a significant change in our business rates, which showed an expected levy of £452,000. That reduced what we were expecting by over £350,000. That was a significant disruptor to the budget, received significantly late in the process, and I think we've done really well to be able to absorb that within this. We're assuming, as a result of the change in our valuations, an increase of 150,000, and that leaves an unfunded balance of just over £200,000, which we are going to make good on this one-off basis from the council reserves, which allows for that change in the amount coming from reserves I mentioned earlier. I'm not going to say very much about the non-specific grants or the government support, but we're assuming a prudent amount from the government as a result of their continuing support. Our other expenditure plans, we're showing earmarked reserves for money going from North Wales Inland Port to the tune of £230,000, and that's called out on page 8. As a result of COVID, we have spent a bit less on our DDF in 2021 than we would have expected, but there are some more ones coming to the tune of just over £250,000 in 21-22. The reason I wanted to produce the Q3 estimates before this is because it may allow us to use some of that further funding that we wouldn't expect as one-off investments that we've put into DDF as a result of better than expected outturn at the end of 2021. Moving on to section 4, Chairman, on page 9, the housing revenue account budget. You can see that in the overall scheme of things, the changes are relatively small from December 2020 to where we are now, showing a net operating income of negative 1.7 million. Moving on to page 10, the areas where we're seeing significant change, a significantly positive change to the supervision and management general costs because we transferred the housing repair service to Qualis. That produces low general fund recharges and leaves us over $500,000 positive. The contribution to the repairs fund is negative of 1.2 million because the housing repairs fund has consistently exceeded the annual contributions in. The charges for service and facilities are under by 400,000. As members will remember, we agreed changes in service charges, which had a reduced income assumption. But we have to recognise that those are phased in over a period of time. So we're not seeing the full yield in 2021. And interest payable on loans, negative 500,000, and direct revenue contributions to capital, positive of over 1.6 million. I think we need to call out the items in 4.3, a significant increase in the gross rent from dwellings, and an increase in the capital charges because, as we highlighted before, in the review of the fixed asset register, the depreciation budget was insufficient. Chairman, I'm not going to go through the detailed budgets page by page, but I think that summarises overall what it is that we intend to do with our budget. The key highlights there are that it's a balanced budget and that we have a council tax increase of 0. And Chairman, therefore, I'm happy to ask the members to support the recommendations on the original agenda item 8 on page 17 and recommend this budget to council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phillip. Councillor Phillip, can I just say a couple of words to start with? Well done on a 0% council tax increase. I think that's super news for our residents. Can I also just put on record my thanks to all the officers who have been involved. I know this has been a particularly tough year with all that's been going on. We are under an awful lot of pressure all the time, particularly in this area where we're dealing with business grants and everything else at the same time. And Chris and Andrew have done a brilliant job alongside other officers in putting this together. So I'm sure you'd agree with me, Councillor Phillip, that we should be putting on record our thanks and perhaps an additional recommendation, especially during this COVID time, with what's been achieved.
Absolutely, Chairman. I'm completely happy with that. I've been very impressed with the way that the officers have struggled with the various challenges that have been thrown at them at all sorts of points during the budget process, including those ones late in February. And the fact we've got to this point and been able to publish it beforehand and bring the 0% council tax rise to Cabinet rather than keep continuing to work through to get there by the time we get to council, I'm very pleased with, and I would truly echo and reflect onwards your commendations to my officers.
Brilliant. Can we make sure that's clearly minuted as part of this meeting? Can I also say, Councillor Phillip, I think one of the other comments I would make here is not just about the fact we're going through COVID. As a team of Cabinet members, my Cabinet team who are bringing forward some very exciting projects with officers through this budget, we've not only dealt with the COVID pandemic, we've not only dealt with doing the expected, we've brought forward the unexpected, like some of the measures around Qualis and around the Epping Sports Centre projects, and the amount of effort that goes into these things, the council house building programme and everything else, sometimes gets forgotten. But I'm going to take other members now. So Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Phillip, for that report, and congratulations on a really strong and balanced budget. And I really welcome the council tax being frozen. I know for residents at this difficult time, that's a really positive thing. In terms of my perspective on the budget, there are some real highlights. Epping Sports Centre and swimming pool I know provision for the delivery of that is within the budget, and that's a really good thing for Epping. In terms of my own portfolio, I'm really pleased to see the continuation for the Essex police officers, which we have in-house, and a real added value. And actually, we often forget all of the extra stuff we do as a council beyond our statutory duties. And I know, particularly during the COVID period, our community safety team and the Essex police team, which we have in-house, have done a really fantastic job. And the other part I would like to highlight particularly is around the council house building programme and our budget for new council houses in the district for local people. I think overall there's provision for £140 million roughly, and that's what we're investing in affordable housing for local people. So that's a real good news story. And I know Councillor Heap asked some questions before, which I'm sure he'll come back with, but I know we are looking at a new business plan to ensure the HRA is sensibly managed moving forward, and that we have the right provisions in place to make sure that we're delivering the best possible value for local residents in the delivery of affordable housing. And a good piece of news we had recently is we have got investment partner status with Homes England, which means we have opportunities for grants and even more exciting projects as to come in the Council House Development Programme. So just to really say congratulations, Councillor Phillip, well done to the Cabinet. I know this is a really difficult budget, and I think local residents will thank us for keeping the tax down. And we're still the lowest in Essex, I believe, which is a good piece of news. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Whitbread. Certainly some of the things that you refer to, which are contained within the capital budget, I think is my next report, but certainly I welcome those items. And yes, it is very important to remember that we have and are continuing to provide lots of things that are not statutory services. And certainly I remember the time when we decided that the right thing to do was to employ our own police officers as part of Essex Police. I certainly believe that's been one of the big successes over the past few years that we've done. Yes, I would echo your comments around the Housing Revenue Account Plan. I know that's scheduled to come forward later on in this year. It is important that we get it right. It would be better to have it earlier, but it's more important to get it right than to get it early. We'll take that one forward as we go.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cohn.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could share with colleagues the congratulations to extend to the finance team. An exceptional job in exceptional times. It must have been like juggling with chainsaws at times, I'm sure. If I could just highlight a couple of things in there that I was really pleased to see. I was very pleased to see the Kickstart programme in there and the Town Centre project manager. It's an important phase that we're moving into, the rejuvenation and the resurrection of our economy across the district. And these are two important programmes that will help see that through. So once again, many thanks to the finance team and to yourself, Councillor Phillip.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. A few points and then a couple of detailed questions, which I appreciate I might not get the answer to tonight. Can I just echo the thanks to the officers and the portfolio holder on an excellent budget. He's consulted across the council, and I do think we have something to learn from that. So well done for that, Councillor Phillip. I do feel as if all members feel as if they've been involved in this process. You've told us where you've consulted, you've told us where you've listened, and I'm glad that you've achieved what you wanted to achieve, a 0% increase. And I know that for this year, and I know that was something that a number of members, including myself, raised at the meetings where you sought views across the council. So really well done for that. And if I haven't thanked the officers, which I think I have, but I can thank them again. So really pleased about that. So good on the 0%, but good also on the inclusive style in which this decision was reached. I think we've got something to learn from that. I do just have a couple of detailed questions on the pages. So I'm looking at the yellow appendix we got. Page 13. abandoned vehicles towards the bottom, that is an issue in wards, and I couldn't quite understand why we think our final expenditure this year is just over 21,000 on that, but our draft expenditure for next year we think is going to be 6,500. That seems to me a rather large decrease. I wouldn't have thought the issue of abandoned vehicles is going to suddenly improve to that extent. So it may just be a technical accountancy thing that's happened there. But when I see figures that I can't really explain, so if someone either at the meeting or at some stage can explain why the large decrease in net expenditure on abandoned vehicles, because it does annoy a residents. I probably get at least 8 or 9 a year, and that's just in my ward. So I'm sure across the district. So if I could have some explanation, and as I say, I understand maybe not get it tonight, why there's that significant decrease. And the other one that stuck out for me was on page 15 under economic projects, and I'm sure that this can only be a change of allocation somewhere. The final figure for 2021 for Safer Communities programme, £238,000, and the draft expenditure 89,400 for 21-22. And again, that seemed to be something that I couldn't quite understand, because obviously the Safer Communities programme is something we all support. So I couldn't quite understand why there seems to be that decrease. So if I could have those points answered, I'll be grateful, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman, for those last two contributions. Yes, thank you, Councillor Kane, about the town centre project manager. And it's important to note that that's not just for Ongar and for Waltham Abbey, but covers the other town centres in the district. And just before Councillor Murray worries, I am still remembering that Loughton High Road and Loughton Broadway are two different places. I do welcome Councillor Murray's comments about the 0% rise. It is something I wanted to be able to do, but wasn't able to commit before this, because as you will understand, there's so many things changing around that the last thing I want to do is put any of the council into difficulties around funding just to keep a 0% budget rise. But I'm glad that we've been able to deliver it. I don't myself know about the abandoned vehicles or the Safer Communities programme. I don't believe my officers have those figures to hand, but I will get back to Councillor Murray on those and make sure that the answers are in the minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Councillor Phillip. Councillor Heath.
Thank you. Yes, I did have quite a few questions about the projected budget, but I guess I can just submit those because there's quite a list of them and everybody will be bored. My general concern was the amount of debt we're accruing and how it's going to be paid off, because 2029 to 34 is going to be quite a strenuous time, because it's got to be about 30 million a year that's got to be paid back on the existing 183. So we are taking out quite a lot of money, rightly so, to build houses. That's a good thing. So it is the HRA account that's the worry. But as Councillor Holly Whitbread said, that there's going to be more work done on that. And the other point was on Appendix B, on page 5 of Appendix B, the columns, not all of them add up by quite a long way. 25, 26, the first batch of numbers there, it's 72223, not 75. So there's something a little amiss with your Excel. That's it.
You, Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Councillor Heath. Yes, if you could send that detail through to me, it's easier than me to try and spot where you're talking about through multiple pages. And yes, I go back to what I said before. It would have been better to have an HRA 30-year plan in advance, being able to do the budget. But unfortunately, doing a budget at this time of the year is an immovable object, and it's more important that we get the plans right for the HRA. and also that we are able to continue building houses in the district for our residents who need them. So I'm fully supportive of us doing that, but he's right, we need to make sure that we can afford what we spend.
Superb. Thank you very much. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Leader. I was impressed when we brought forward the budget last year, but I'm even more impressed that with the budget that's come forward this time around, especially when you consider everything COVID and the impact that it's had on councils' revenue generation, particularly from our assets. And there are a number of assumptions that were made in the previous budget, and a number of them were unable to achieve. So it's even more impressive that we've come forward with a 0% increase. I'd just also like to add as well though, that the transition over from the previous 151 officer from Nick Dorr to Andrew Small, it's been seamless, and actually it's been really. We're very lucky that we've had two really good officers that have been supported in the budget setting process. So I'd like to also thank them as well, and particularly Andrew, for being able to bring forward the budget that we have in front of us. So we as a council haven't cut any frontline service. We've managed to maintain ourselves as the lowest tax rate authority in Essex, and potentially, Leader, you achieved your goal last year when we were the lowest tax rate authority in Essex. The target was then set for us to then become the lowest tax rate authority in the east of England. So let's see if we were able to achieve it this time.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Patel. It's not just about being the lowest council tax in Essex. The most important thing is we protect those frontline services, and we're one of the lowest council taxes in Essex. Councillor Phillip.
I couldn't agree more, Leader. The key part is the two prongs of it. The fact that we're delivering our standard services and the other services, and we have a low council tax. That's the key part. And that's what gives good value to our residents from this council and from the budget that I'm bringing forward. We're not cutting anything. We are continuing to deliver all those things that our residents rely on, right the way from the waste collection, which happened through the bad weather that we've had this week, back to doing our leisure centres when people can get back in them, being able to build a new leisure centre in Epping with a swimming pool to bring more exercising opportunities to our residents, through to what's been mentioned already with the provision of police officers. It's all delivering stuff that's valuable to our residents, and we're doing it at a rate that we can afford without putting overdue pressure on our reserves and without putting extra pressure on our residents. For that, I'm really grateful to my officers and very happy that we've been able to get there.
Councillor Phillip, you're so right. This is a really measured budget, and when you look across some areas, I think the administration, the Liberal Democrat administration in Chelmsford, is looking at putting burial duties up by 12%, possibly, was one of their ideas. So this council's really taken a sensible, measured approach to how it can manage the local finances whilst producing a budget that takes us forward into the future. So that's a really good news story, this budget. Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think, like everybody else, I'm very pleased that the tax isn't going to go up this year, but it's just a small thing which has attracted my attention. It's on page 13, which Councillor Murray has already referred to. It's Appendix A, page 13, and it's the item EH140. It's general drainage, and there's a sum of £50 there, and £50 for next year. I'm just a bit curious to know, it's such a small amount, but actually to know exactly what that is.
That's it.
Councillor Wixley, as you'll no doubt be aware, I can't possibly know exactly what every single £50 in the budget is spent on. I think the important thing is that we've not cut it, and that it's not gone up. But if you really want to know, I'm sure that my cabinet colleague who's responsible for drainage will look into that and get back to you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sunga.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to really echo some of what's already been said and congratulate the portfolio holder, Councillor Phillips, for an excellent draft budget. I think the 0% freeze is a lifeline, I think, for our residents, especially as we just been through some very difficult times and as we come out of the COVID recovery plan. I think it is something that we needed, and the residents will really appreciate this. And really well done to our officers for balancing the books out and making sure they've achieved this. So just really to congratulate the team, and well done. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Councillor Phillip.
I don't think there's anything I need to add to that. And if I keep saying how wonderful my officers are, well, they want it to be easier next year.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you. I just want to respond to your comment, Chairman, about the Liberal Democrats in Chelmsford. The Liberal Democrats only took control of Chelmsford less than 2 years ago. Before that, it was a Conservative council. So I think it's a bit unfair, that comment.
You can only comment on the administration that's setting the budget. And it's a Liberal Democrat council that's setting the budget, and they are raising the cost of burials by 12%. That's well over inflation, which is running at about 2%. So, Councillor Whitehouse, you have to take responsibility for your action when you're in administration. Thank you all very much. Are you happy to agree to recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, moving on then to the capital strategy. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. And the draft capital programme is on yet another of our late items. And Appendix A, the draft capital programme, as it says in the introduction, it's a vital part of what we're doing in terms of our corporate plan. The numbers involved are actually almost mind-bogglingly large. We have both a general fund contribution and a housing revenue account contribution, and between them they come to almost £267 million over the next 5 years. We're looking here at the capital programme from 2021, from 21, 22, 25, 26, and to recommend it to council. The revenue consequences we've already gone through in terms of our budget and the updated medium-term financial plan. Calling out in section 2.1 where our totals lie in the various areas, and from the general fund we're looking at a total capital investment of just shy of £95 million. There's some key items in here which I'd like to call out. The 1.24 million for community and wellbeing to look at the museum and joint library facility in Waltham Abbey. We agreed total funding for the scheme in our December cabinet meeting, and this allows this to move forward. Contracts and technical, that's a full 33.7 million. 7 separate schemes with 3 that are the major contributors. Cartersfield Road, which we will discuss in greater depth later on in this agenda, but this is to allow us to move forward with that development. The really big ticket item, which has been mentioned a whole number of times already, is the Epping Leisure Facility, and that is in the budget for £25 million. Finally, the Disabled Facilities Grants, which are just shy of £5 million. The government's indicated that it intends to uplift that allocation by 13.5%, and therefore we're assuming that we will receive that 13.5% as well. And so we're factoring that into our 21-22 budget, but not assuming any uplift thereafter. Corporate services, IT particularly is the main part in this. We have been highlighted as a result of the COVID pandemic and the move to a more flexible working approach, that we need to be less reliant on pieces of hardware actually sitting within our council offices. We're looking at what we can do to move the on-site data center to the cloud, and also looking at the telephone system. We're actually trying to make it to show that we can work more flexibly and more efficiently, and the provision in the capital program at this stage is essentially a placeholder to allow us to do that. In terms of property services, it's only 0.2 million. That's called out just at the bottom of page 4. Top of page 5, $500,000 we're dedicating from a capital point of view towards environmental projects over the next 2 years. We're looking at this in conjunction with production of the climate strategy and the strategy for the special area conservation. We're putting it in the capital program, and by that, assuming in the revenue budget, there's sufficient provision there. Also shows potential for contributions from Section 106 to help with a subject that's very dear, I know, to Councillor Bedford's heart, of tree planting. And finally, the Qualis of 57 million, which is the balance of the previously agreed 63 million regeneration finance loan. Moving on to the housing revenue capital program, and again, this is in the context, as has been mentioned already, of an updated HRA 30-year plan coming forward later on in 21-22. Dominated primarily by the housing development programme, which is virtually £114 million, of which 91.5 is to do house building. This is in to produce at least 417 properties on a number of sites, including those already called out in the 4.2 programme. Qualis acquisitions. The development programme is also including the planned acquisition of 107 affordable rent and shared ownership properties at St John's, Condor and Hemel Street sites when they are developed by Qualis. This will be bringing Qualis developed assets back into the housing revenue account to provide housing for our residents. The remaining amount of the capital works are to do works on windows, doors, roofing, kitchens, etc. It averages out at just shy of 12 million a year, significantly up from the 2021 budget of 9.5 million. And that's primarily due to looking at the latest stock condition data as we're reaching a number of items that are getting towards the end of the short of their lifetime and will therefore need to be replaced in the short to medium term. Section 3.3 calls out what's been said already in terms of 30-year business plan, and we're looking also at an update of the 3-year capital strategy. Chairman, I'm happy to take questions on this. But clearly, if it relates to particular areas of expertise, I may call my colleagues or the officers to answer those questions.
Okay. Members, any questions on the capital strategy or any comments? Councillor Bedford.
Thank you, Leader. Just really pleased to see that we're actually starting to follow through on our commitment to the environment. Really pleased to see that we've got a mention now in the special area conservation and some money's put aside. I know that going forward, some of the new house building stuff that's being proposed now by central government's recommending actually that new streets and developments are actually lined with trees again. So that will be quite nice for the future. So yeah, really pleased to see that £500,000 in there. Also, I note the word in there that the proposed allocation is provisional at this stage and is subject to completion of a climate strategy and the agreement of a special area conservation SAC strategy with Natural England. Hopefully we're there. All good news at the moment, and we just need the Section 106 monies to start coming in to help fund some of the additional work that's required. Very pleased with the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other members of the Cabinet? No. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. A few comments, but all positive. Really good to read this report. A very impressive capital programme. I'm particularly really enthusiastic about the plan as regards the museum and library in Waltham Abbey. What I would say, though, is, and I know it's not a capital issue, doing that in Waltham Abbey, which is obviously the place to do it because that's where the museum is, absolutely imperative we use every influence we can to improve public transport, because we all know that you can only get to Waltham Abbey really by driving by car or a lift from someone else, because public transport from the rest of the district to Waltham Abbey is almost non-existent or very poor. And we all know what we would be driving through the stack to get there. So please, anything that we can do to improve public transport, if we're really enhancing the museum in Waltham Abbey, becomes even more important. I would like to echo Councillor Holly Whitbread's comment about the house building programme, and particularly impressive that we've got that money from the government Quango. So well done to the officers that have obtained that. And if I could, I mean, I realise we won't have 700 people on online tonight, but we might have a few residents from North Weald and Waltham Abbey. And on the other item, Councillor Philip inadvertently made a mistake. I don't know how many, but because of the bad weather, we have had missed collections in North Weald. We have had missed collections in Waltham Abbey. I know that for a fact. And the residents have been told that they put everything away and it will be collected again in 2 weeks. And in fact, if you phone the district council normal line, which I did today, to get to another officer, that's the first thing you hear. So I realised that he wasn't aware of that, but just in case we have any Waltham Abbey or North Weald residents tuning in who have actually had their collections missed and have to wait 2 weeks now for that particular collection, I thought I'd better just correct that mistake, but not deliberate mistake, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philip.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, can I first completely echo Councillor Bedford's comments? Living in a ward where we do have significant numbers of road trees, Chairman, I know you get communication from a number of my residents and parish councillors about trees and taking voice on the road. I do welcome them. They have to be the right trees in the right place, otherwise they cause all sorts of other problems. But certainly that's one of the things that we trust with the local plan, is in terms of making somewhere a better place to live. That clearly includes keeping it good with trees as well. Because Murray, yes, I hear what you say about public transport. As you know, we've put in place that trial of demand responsive transit around the old route of the 84. We need to look to see how successful that is. And as I said at the time, if it's something that makes sense, we will look to see whether we can fund more of it. I take the point that moving down to Waltham Abbey might well be a case, but it might be a case of trying to make sure that we do that with any form of transport that is non-damaging to the special area of conservation. And I take the correction, I hadn't heard of any missed collection, so I acknowledge that, and I'm sure that Councillor Avey will be making sure that Biffa collects as much as possible as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much. Members, I've got no more speakers listed. You've got the recommendations for the capital strategy. Can I agree those?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, then we go back to...
I think Councillor Avey has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Avey.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I don't feel on top form today because I've just completed 6 weeks of radiotherapy. So apologies for being a bit distant, but I've been kept advised of collections and missed collections, and I think we have it under control. And in those areas where we have, or roads we have missed, we are asking residents to keep their bins back for 2 weeks, and then Biffa will be collecting, and will be collecting any additional waste beside the bins as well, to make up for the fact that due to the adverse weather conditions, we just haven't been able to get to everybody. So, apologies to residents, and we'll keep people updated.
Thank you, Councillor Avey. And I think BIFA have done a brilliant job over the past year with all that we've gone through. And who can tell adverse weather? It's one of those things, unfortunately. And I know they'll do their best to catch up and get us back on track again. So got every confidence in that. In that case, members, are we happy to agree just very clearly the recommendations?
Agree.
Very much. Okay. Moving on the agenda to the proposed redevelopment of units 50, 51, 52 and 60 and unit 10 of Castersfield Road, Waltham Abbey. Councillor Philip again.
Thank you, Chairman. This falls into two parts. One, which I'll touch on very briefly, and then hand over to Councillor Patel for the asset management side of things. The first recommendation is tied into the capital budget we've just approved, and highlighting that the need to allocate money in that for the redevelopment of these properties is key. And now I'll hand over to Councillor Patel to look at the rest of the report.
Thank you. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Philip. Units 50, 51 to 52, 60 and Unit 10, Castersfield Road at Brooker Road Industrial Estate have been identified as an opportunity to redevelop into modern industrial units. This will improve the regeneration, employment and the rental income of EFDC's property holdings from circa £80,000 per annum currently to circa £360,000 per annum. The units are coming to the end of their economic life, and the third were destroyed by a fire. In September 2020, planning consent was granted for a new scheme on light industrial units. EFDC is now required to formally tender for the professional and project management services in order to undertake the redevelopment from pre-works, demolition, through to construction and post-completion sign-off. Overall project costs, including professional fees, is projected in the region of £2.7 million, taking a projected 9 to 15 months for the project to complete. The current holdings are valued at 1.8 million, and the projected capital value on completion of the redevelopment is projected at 7.1 million as of February 2020. The area of the development is approximately 20,000 square foot. This provides an excellent rental, over 10% per annum, and capital yield for EFDC, and is a clear example of how commercial, economic, and regeneration place shaping objectives can be aligned. Leader asks that Cabinet to agree the recommendations as stated on page 73.
Members, any questions? No? Okay, in that case, can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
I was only going to say that it's nice to see that the council are turning what is basically a derelict function into an asset again, and we're increasing the value of that asset. Well done. It's a good idea.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so recommendations agreed. We'll move then on to item 13, the Qualis Quarterly Monitoring Report. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Leader. This report represents the Q4 monitoring position for Qualis operation up to 31st of October. This is also the Qualis accounting year end, and so Qualis has provided their signed off accounts to the shareholder following completion of the audit process. The accounts have been reproduced along with the board report in the interest of transparency. As the audit process takes longer to complete, this quarterly monitoring position is presented later than would be expected for an ordinary quarter. The audited year-end position has only, in the last few weeks, been agreed by the Qualis board, and because of the fall of meetings, Cabinet is receiving this report before overview and scrutiny have had the opportunity to review the position. The same report will be presented to Council at its next meetings. In its first year of operation, Qualis has reported a loss. This is in line with the business case and operational expectations. For the first year of operations, it was planned that Qualis will concentrate on the setup phase of its activities, largely incurring costs with little or no trading income expected. The impact of COVID-19 was to slow set-up activities. That this has been consistently reported in Qualis and Epping Forest District Council's monitoring reports this year. Taking into account the impact of COVID-19, I can therefore report that Qualis' outturn is where we would expect it to be at the end of their first year. Within the Qualis Q4 board report, the only key performance indicators flagged as amber were associated with moving forward on the purchase and delivery of a plan for the Pearls Lane site and the acquisition of commercial properties within Qualis Living, where legal completion was delayed into early November. Housing maintenance activities are also successfully transferred in Q4. I asked members of the Cabinet to note the report.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? Nothing from the Cabinet. I've got Councillor Heap.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question about Leatherhead building. I know everybody's bored with it, but what's actually been bought? Is it the building? Is it a company that owns a building, or is it part ownership of a building? What is the Leatherhead Office Park Management Company Limited in relation to Arsenet? That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Patel.
At the briefing we had the other evening, Councillor Kaufman gave a really good update on the two purchases that we had. But in terms of the question that you've asked, I'd need to ask Mr. Small to come in at this point, please.
Mr. Small.
Thank you, Leader. I'm sure the purchase was for the building and the tenant in situ as well. So it's for the lease income into to the end of the lease period, which I think was 17 years. I think was said on the briefing to all members.
Brilliant. Thank you.
But, sorry, you have bought a company though, haven't you? Because it's still Leatherhead, whatever it was, Leatherhead Office Park Management Company. That's listed as something you own, isn't it? Qualis Living owns.
Chairman,
No?
can I come in?
Yeah, of course.
So thank you for the question, Councillor Heap. We bought the freehold of a fully refurbished office building, which is let to two Grade A tenants. Because it's on a business park, there will be a service charge for the business park, and I imagine that company we will have ownership of the management company in terms of service charge of the common areas. We have bought a direct owned freehold asset.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murray.
A couple of points, Chairman, and then a question. I thought the presentation, they all merge into one, don't they? Whenever it was this week, I think it was Tuesday. I thought the presentation from Qualis was very good. I have to say, parts of it, being just an ordinary school teacher, and I know my own limitations, I have to say parts of it went straight over my head, particularly the first contribution that we had from someone. Didn't really understand the word he was going on about, but overall I thought the presentation was really useful, and I thought, and I'm not just saying it because he's here tonight, I thought the contribution of Councillor Kaufman was excellent. My question is on page 127, and it's about Qualis management, and we've got 3 sentences there, and I think I do need to read them out then it explains why I want to ask my question. It says progress with TUPE plan for the housing maintenance staff has been agreed. Systems and processes to support the transfer have been delivered to timescale. A staff consultation plan has been agreed and has commenced. And I make no apology for being rather old-fashioned. I'm a trade unionist at heart, and I want to know whether Qualis management have recognised the legitimate trade unions that some of the housing maintenance staff will be members of. Do trade unions have recognition rights with Qualis management? Thank you.
Councillor Patel.
I believe they do, Councillor Murray.
Brilliant. Anyone else for any questions? Councillor Heap, your hand's still up. Have you got one more to come back on?
Well, I did, but I think I'm going to leave it for now. I don't think there's worth point asking.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Waxley.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, quite a lot of this report is probably above my head, and apart from the fact I haven't really had a chance to look at it. But at what point will Qualis start repaying the loans that it's have sourced from the district council?
Councillor Patel.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Wixley. Qualis will start to make some the repayments of the loans as and when it starts to generate revenue from their services and also from their rentals. But we have shown the projections of what we're anticipating in the report. So if you need further clarification, then I could ask Mr. Small if he could come in at this point.
Mr. Small.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, the repayments will start in their effective year 2 trading year, which is our current financial year.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, you've got the recommendations before you. Can we agree those recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you so much. Okay, then we move on to item 14, which is pay policy statement. I believe that is Councillor Sam Kane.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is a statutory requirement. We produce this every year. It's a statement of fact. I don't think there's going to be too much debate about it, but I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions on the pay statement? I can't see any there. Can I agree those recommendations?
Agreed.
Brilliant. Thank you. Item 15, there's no any other business, and there's no need to exclude the public and press, and therefore I bring the meeting to an end. Thank you very much.
Well done, Chairman.